Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidina Nabiyyina Khatimul Mursaleen Abul Qasim Muhammad Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-ma'sumin al-mazlumin allazina azhaballahu anhum ar-ritsa wa tahirahum tathira. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أما بعد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إن الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my dear viewers. I hope this finds you in the best of health and happiness. Today is the day that we mark with the martyrdom of Hazrat Ummul Baneen, Salamullahi alayha. This is the day of her martyrdom, and this is the day for the remembrance of her. And inshallah, we will look upon her life, we will look upon her legacy, and see what we can do to orient ourselves to her life. This was a life of dedication. This was a life of sincerity. This was a life of love for the Holy Al-Abad, for the Prophet's family. Her whole life was devoted for that. And inshallah, we'll see how we can adapt our life, how we can orient ourselves to follow in her footsteps by looking at her legacy, by looking at her example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent us so many examples. We have so many examples, especially in the Shia faith, so many noble ladies that we can follow their footsteps and follow their examples. We can take the example of Bibi Khadijatul Kubra. We can take the examples from Bibi Fatimatul Zahra, Salamullahi alayha, Bibi Zainab Kubra, Bibi Kulsum. So many ladies who were with Imam Hussein in Karbala, so many ladies that have such a prominent role to play in the spread of Islam after Karbala. So we have such great examples. So inshallah, what I would like to do in the few moments, I would like to share some of my thoughts, and we will look upon the life of Ummul Baneen, Salamullahi alayha, her birth, her childhood, and then of course the Karbala, the Battle of Karbala and the aftermath of Karbala, and what role she played after Karbala. And then we will just spend a little bit of time reflecting upon her life, and inshallah that is going to give us that guidance and that courage to move forward in this world that is so filled up with challenges, especially now with the pandemic going on. We are restricted in our activities, we are restricted in how we can spend time with each other. So many challenges going on around the world, especially for people of our background, people that are Muslims in general, facing so many challenges all throughout the world. So inshallah, let's spend some time looking upon her life. And the best way to start the day is start the day with remembrance of Bibi Ummul Baneen, Salamullahi alayha. So she was born in the 5th year after Hijri. And just to put everything in perspective, this is 5 years after the migration of the Prophet from Mecca to Medina. And we know that our Imam Hussein, may our lives be sacrificed for him, he was born in the 4th year of Hijri. And Bibi Zainab Kubra was born in the 6th year of Hijri. So Bibi Ummul Baneen is born in the 5th year of Hijri. So we can see, looking at the ages of our Imams, and then Bibi Zainab, she's about the same age as Imam Hussein and Bibi Zainab. And Imam Hassan is about 2 years older than her. And then when when Karbala happened, she was about 55 years of age. So she was pretty young, considering these times. When we look at these times, people in their 50s, early 60s, they are still mashallah, pretty good health. And but in those days, around the age, like when we talk about ages of like 50 and 60, people would get older faster. So that's the reason why when we listen to the majalis and people talk about Hazrat Ummul Baneen, and when she heard the news of Karbala, how she had an asa in her hand and how she walked up to the messenger who brought the message to ask him questions. That's the reason why in the majalis we hear about Bibi Ummul Baneen, and it sounds to us like she was a lot older, but considering the ages now, she wasn't that old. And then when she was married at a very young age. About She was about 15 years of age, and when she had Hazrat Abbas, Khamere Bani Hashim Abbas, she was about 17 years of age. So she was pretty young when she had Hazrat Abbas. But then in those days, women would have children very early. We know that our Bibi Fatimatul Zahra, Salamullahi alaiha, her martyrdom is when she was 18 years old, and she already had 4 kids by the time she is 18 years old. So in those days, everything started earlier and finished earlier. So we have to keep that in perspective. The family of Hazrat Ummul Baneen, it was a family that was known for their bravery, known for their noble characteristics. So there were these two families of are the family of the Prophet, which is the Bani Hashim, excuse me, and the family of Bibi Ummul Baneen Salamullahi alaiha is the Bani Kilab. Both of these families were known for their chivalry, known for their nobleness, known for their best of manners. And these families were the ones who helped the oppressed, who helped the poor, who took care of the needy, and who were the prominent leaders of their communities. But this particular family that our Bibi Ummul Baneen belonged to is the family of Bani Kilab, and they were known for their bravery. Her brother, who is called, his name is Hizam ibn Khalid. So he was so well known for his bravery, so very brave, that other people would write his name on their swords. So they would engrave his name on the sword, and then they would go to the battlefield. And it is said that people who had that opportunity to engrave the name on the sword were the ones who were like the leaders of their tribe or the leaders of the army. Not everybody had that distinction of writing, engraving his name on their sword. So that's how prominently known they were for their bravery, that people would be inspired to have their names engraved on the sword, and then they would go to the battlefield. And then it is also said that if you saw swords lying in the battlefield, like broken swords or people leaving behind their swords, you would never find a sword that had this particular name engraved on it lying in the battlefield, because people who carried that sword were the ones who were brave themselves. So so this family was known for its bravery. Now, an interesting thing, like we know that our Mawla was looking for a lady who belonged to a family that had this characteristic of being brave, right? So the question that comes to our mind is it a trait that is carried from generation to generation? Is bravery something that gets carried, that is in our genes? Like, I'm a scientist, so I think logically, I think with science in my mind. And of course, if our Mola is saying that, look for a lady who belongs to a family that is known for bravery, then we know our Mola, who is Babul Madinatul Ilm, he knows everything. And if he's saying, surely this is how it is. But does science today say anything about, like, um, is bravery something that is in our genes that gets passed on from generation to generation? So actually, I was looking it up yesterday, And the interesting thing is that, yes, it was actually in 1958 that a scientist discovered that, yes, bravery is something that is in our genes that can get passed on from one generation to the other generation. It's one of those characteristics that gets um, carried through the generations, which is really interesting. But again, what we have to do is nurture that trait, that characteristic. If you just have it and you never practice with it, then it is something that is lost. So it's something that is really important to know, especially, like when we are raising our kids. How do we make sure that our kids are brave and courageous? Bravery is not just something in the battlefield that you take a sword and you go and fight in the battlefield and you're victorious. Bravery is speaking your mind. Bravery is standing for what is right. Bravery is being with the oppressed, talking about their needs. It doesn't matter what the consequences, to always stand with the right, to always stand with haq, which is what our Mawla did. Our Mawla was known that our prophet says that if you want to know what is right and what is wrong, look at where Ali is, and that is where haq is going to be. So bravery is like standing up for what is right, no matter what the consequence. How do we teach that to our kids? How do we teach that to ourselves? How do we practice it ourselves? Do we need to have that bravery gene? Of course, that gene is there in the followers of the Holy Alibad, because we do stand up. We have that backbone to stand up and proclaim our love for the Holy Alibad, proclaim our love for Maula Ali. But then we have to nurture that. We have to nurture it. It is in our nature, but we have to nurture it. And so, how do we nurture it? We nurture it by looking at these examples, these noble personalities, and then just cultivating that, those kind of traits in ourselves, that every time we are cognizant of what we believe in, every time it is primarily in our mind, we have that sincerity of purpose and we have that ikhlas. We are one of the mukhlisun of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that anything we do is solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we have that kind of an attitude, that kind of mentality, then we are the brave ones, because we have that ikhlas, we have that sincerity of purpose, that it doesn't matter what is happening, what people are thinking, how people are reacting to our beliefs and what we do, our actions. Our actions are only done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That gives us the courage. But we have to nurture that every day. Every day we have to nurture it and make sure that is exactly what we are doing. And so, like when we go to bed, one of the things that our imams have taught us is that just reflect upon the day and see, did I do any action that was done for the sake of people, or was it done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's something that I have to keep in mind as well, because we all have our flaws, and we have to just keep at it. We have to just keep nurturing those traits, because these are the noble traits. This is a trait that our Maula Ali was looking for in the lady he is going to marry. So this is the family that Hazrat Ummul Baneen Salamullahi alaiha belonged to, a family that had the love for the Holy Ahl Bayt also in their hearts. It is a well-known fact that her father, Hizam ibn Khalid, he was a lover of Maula Ali, and they were so completely in love with the family of the Prophet that when this proposal came to them, they were overjoyed. They were so thrilled. And they had that question in their mind, is our daughter good enough to be in that household? So, this is the kind of family. This was so much in love with the Holy Alibad. And also, another thing to keep in mind is we think, like we have that love for the Holy Alibad in our hearts. Is that love going to pass to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation? I am pretty sure that by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that love is going to go on to the next generation and the next forever till the appearance of our 12th Imam, inshallah. But again, we have to nurture it. So it's in the nature, it's going to be in the nature of our children, but we have to be the ones that nurture that love and make sure that that love is there, and it is a prominent love that is in their minds, that everything that they do out of love for the Holy Alibad and out of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So something that to keep in mind. So Bibi Ummul Baneen Salamullahi alaiha belongs to this very noble family with these very noble traits. And if you keep looking up in her family tree, it's kind of like the same tree that is shared by the Holy Prophet himself. So right on top of the tree, we see Abdul Manaf, and so they are all descendants of the same person. So they have a common tree way up there in the family tree. So that's a little bit about her family background. Then the story of how the proposal came to the family is also a very beautiful story. It is, we know that our Maula Ali went to his brother, Hazrat Akhil, and he asked him to look for this lady of this noble traits who belongs to this very brave family. And Hazrat Akhil he knew genealogy. He was very good at looking at lineages. He knew the lineages of every tribe in the region of Mecca. It was called Hijaz. So he was very well aware of everything, all the lineages. And we know that there were families, there were tribes there in that region who were cowards. We know from the battles, we hear about all the battles that were fought by the Holy Prophet, and how there were people who ran away from the battlefield, ran away so far that they had to, when they came back, it took them 3 days to come back. That's how far away they ran. So there were families who were known for their cowardice, and they were family like this noble family, the Bani Kilab, who were known for their bravery. And Hazrat Akhil was familiar with all of these families, all of these lineages. But again, we have to see that our Mullah knows everything, so why is he asking his brother? The reason is that he wants to show us by his example that when you look for these noble traits, when you look for a person to marry, whether it's, like it's a boy or a girl, you want to make sure that they belong to a good family, because that's also very important. Because if it is a good family, then that person is going to have the best manners. And I have to tell you, those best manners are the most pleasing trait of a person. When you take a look at somebody and, like you see their excellent manners, you can tell they belong to good families. So that's a very important thing we have to keep in mind, is make sure that when we are looking for a boy or a girl, for our children or for our relatives, that the first and most important thing is that they belong to a good family, because then we are going to have somebody with khush akhlaq, somebody who has these best manners. That is the most pleasing thing that you can see in a person. And I have to tell you, it doesn't matter how good they look or how beautiful they look outwardly. If they don't have those manners, very soon you will see that same person and you'll think they're ugly because of their bad manners. It makes a person ugly. So just something to keep in mind. Our Maula is showing by his example that this is what you need to look for. And so the story about how Hazrat Akhil went to this family, the mother and father of Bibi Ummul Baneen, Salamullahi alaiha, and what happened over there is also very beautiful. He went over there to this family, and as was the tradition of the Arabs, they would host somebody who came to them for 3 days. So Hazrat Akhil stayed with that family for 3 days. And on the third day, the subject was approached that the reason for his visit is that he has brought this beautiful proposal from our Maula Mushkil Kusha. He is looking to marry, and he's looking for a lady to marry, and he would like to be married to this tribe because of their nobility and their bravery and all of these beautiful manners that this family has. And when Hizam hears about this, the father of our baby hears about this, he is overjoyed, and he says, "First, I want to check with my daughter." Now, here's another important thing that only these noble families would do something like this, is checking with the daughter before agreeing to a marriage. And we see that the same thing when the prophet uh, brought this proposal of Maula Ali to Bibi Fatima Zahra. He wanted to check with her first. He wanted to see what her reaction is before he agreed to that proposal. And the same thing we see, this is a tribe that is also very noble, and they want to make sure that their daughter agrees with this proposal. So Hizam goes to his daughter, and she is with her mother. And at that moment in time, what happened is that the narrations say that the night before, Bibi Ummul Baneen Salamullahi alaiha had a dream. In that dream, she saw this beautiful garden with beautiful flowers, and the streams are flowing, and it is nighttime in this garden, and she is admiring the beauty of her surroundings. She's looking at these flowers, she's looking at these flowing streams, and she is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of his creation and all of his bounty. And then she looks up into the sky, and she sees this beautiful moon, full moon, and the stars, and she is gazing upon the sky, admiring the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then she is telling her mother about this dream, and her father is standing outside the door listening to this conversation. So she's telling her mother that she was sitting down and admiring this beauty, and then she sees that this beautiful moon from the sky has fallen into her lap. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And we know that it is Khamare Bani Hashim, Hazrat Abbas, who is in her lap now. And then she sees that 3 stars from the sky have also fallen into her lap. And then she wakes up from this beautiful dream. So she's telling her mother, and her father is listening to this conversation, and he walks in, and he says that, "My daughter, I know why you have this dream, because we have this beautiful proposal that has just come to us from Hazrat Akhil, and you are going to be married in this noble family, and you're going to have 4 sons, and one of them is going to be as beautiful and as handsome as this moon that you saw falling into your lap." So this is such a beautiful story of what our Bibi saw even before she got the proposal from Maula Ali, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that, she had that dream because she was inspired by by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this was Allah's plan that she would be married in this household. So she agrees, and she's very happy with what is about to happen to her life and her future, because she has that love for the Holy Alibet in her heart as well. And then they are married. And it is said that when she went to that house of Bibi Fatima Zahra, when she was standing by the door, she called the children, and then she told them that, "I am not going to be your mother, I'm going to be your servant." So this was her devotion to the family of the Prophet. This was her sincerity. This was her loyalty. This was her love for that family, that she held them in such high regard, because she knew this house is the house of Tathir. This is a house that is blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. This is a house that is raised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And she is becoming a part of this household. So she just wanted to set that expectations with the children. Of course, they called her their mother, but something that shows that shows us what her mental thoughts were when she was stepping into this household, that she was so overwhelmed about what she was doing and the house that she was stepping into, that she wanted to make sure that she wanted to make sure that they know that this is how she's thinking about herself, that she's going to be a khadima, she's going to be somebody who's there to provide a service to them. And they called her their mother, of course, but it just shows her humbleness, how humble she was, what a humble and sincere person she was. So we see that then she spends her days and just loving the family of the Prophet, loving Hasnan and Bibi Zainab Kulsum. She is with them, and she is providing that service to them. She is their mother. She is there providing that affection, that comfort that they need, because they are without a mother. So she's there for them. And then pretty soon she has that the dream is fulfilled when she has Hazrat Abbas. He is in her lap now. And we know that the first time Hazrat Abbas Alamdar opened his eyes was in the arms of Imam Hussain. So he opened his eyes in the arms of Imam Hussain. His childhood was spent with Imam Hussain, and then as he was growing up, it was with Bibi Zainab. So those were the two people that looked after him, and he spent his most of his time with them growing up. So we know that Hazrat Ummul Baneen Salamullahi alaiha, she was there during Karbala. She was not with Imam Hussain. She was in Medina during that time because Imam Hussain wanted her to be in Medina, taking care of his sick daughter and also taking care of other things that he had entrusted to her. So she was there, and with her also was the youngest son of Hazrat Abbas was with her then. So she was taking care of him, and she was in Medina. But when she sent Hazrat Abbas out to Karbala, when they were leaving, when that caravan was leaving Medina to go towards Karbala, she instructed Hazrat Abbas and she said that I want you to realize who is with you. You have the son of Fatima Zahra with you. I'm entrusting him to you. Make sure that he's safe no matter what happens to you. Make sure that he's safe. That also shows us, we hear all of this when we hear in majlises during Muharram and Safar, when majlises are recited and we have these excellent speakers speaking to us. We hear about Hazrat Ummul Baneen and the devotion and the love that she had for the Holy Al-Abad, that she didn't really, it didn't matter to her what happened to her own sons. She had 4 sons. It didn't matter that what happened to her sons did not matter. What happened to Imam Hussain was the one thing that she most cared about, because this was the son of Fatima Zahra, this was the son of the Prophet himself, and she had so much love for them, so much devotion for the family of the Prophet, that to her this was her sacrifice, that she was not even going to mention the names of her sons. She was only going to she was only going to care about what was going to happen to Imam Hussain in Karbala and make sure that he is safe and her sons take care of his safety. That was the most prominent thing in her mind. And that that teaches us how to be sincere, how to have that love for the Holy Al-Abad, that nothing matters in our life. Our life is dedicated to one thing, which is love for the Holy Al-Abad. That we dedicate our life, we dedicate our time, everything that we do, everything, all our actions are dictated by that love for the Holy Al-Abad. Just like Hazrat Ummul Baneen Salamullahi alaiha, she has left that legacy of sacrifice, that legacy of loyalty, that legacy of love, that when we see that with her actions, she has shown that what matters is love for these Panjatan Pak, love for this family of the Prophet, and nothing else matters. She is ready to sacrifice her sons, she is ready to sacrifice her whole life, dedicate her whole life for their safety, for their comfort, for providing service to them and taking care of them. This was the life that she led. Her whole life was a life of sacrifice. And when Imam Hussein had left Medina and gone towards Karbala, the thing that was in her mind the most was the safety of Imam Hussein. She would pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep the family safe and to keep the chadar of Bibi Zainab Kubra safe and to keep the ladies safe. And she knew that she had brought up her son Hazrat Abbas and her three sons in such a way that they would be ready to sacrifice their lives for the safety of this family, that they would do everything in their power, everything possible to make sure that Imam Mazloom is comfortable, that his family is comfortable, and it didn't matter what problems they were going through, what challenges they were going through. They would make sure that this family is safe and this family is comfortable. She knew that because this is how she had brought up her sons. This is how she had brought up her family. So again, this is something that is a legacy left by Bibi Ummul Baneen that we need to follow in her footsteps and make sure that our children are ready to dedicate their lives for the love of the Holy Alipad, that they walk in the footsteps of the Holy Alipad and they take these role models as their exemplary examples and follow in their footsteps. And of course, we have to do the same thing by doing what we do every day, by modifying our actions. We set examples for our families because the families are going to look up to us to see what we do. How are we ready for Salat at the time of Salat? How are we waking up for Namaz-e-Shab? How are we, waking up for Fajr Namaz? And when they see that sincerity in actions themselves, we set that example for our children to follow. Inshallah, we are going to be those examples. So it is a life of dedication of Bibi Ummul Baneen. When we look at her life, Salamullahi alaiha, it's a life of dedication to the Prophet's family. And we are going to conclude the discussion about her life and about her legacy by reciting the ziyarat of Bibi Ummul Baneen. And I have the ziyarat is in duas.org. That's a place I go to for all the ziyarats. And then there's also a book in, if you go to the website alislam.org, there's a book that is written up and it is called Exemplary Women. Under that title, there is Ummul Baneen, and it is translated by Mehboobe Murshadian. So if you want to look up and read about, because today is the day that we have dedicated for her, if you want to look it up and read a little bit about her, it's in English and it's very beautiful. It talks about her descent, it talks about her marriage, the beautiful dream that I talked about, it talks about that, and then her dedication, her devotion to the Prophet's family, and then how beautiful and loving mother she was to Bibi Fatima Zahra's children, and then raising her own children to have that kind of loyalty and that mental state of devotedness, of sincerity towards the family of the Prophet. It talks about all of that. So it's a really nice book. It's really nice put together. And then there's also it's a poem about her is also in this book, and it's just a few pages. I think it's about how many pages? Let's see, about 10 pages or so. So it's a pretty fast read. So let's read that. And the ziyarat, of course, it's in duas.org. So we can read the ziyarat of Bibi Ummul Baneen and then conclude our thoughts. So I'm going to go there now to duas.org and pull up her ziyarat. It's a pretty short ziyarat of Bibi Ummul Baneen that is there in duas.org. They have a long ziyarat and then a shorter ziyarat. Inshallah, we'll do the shorter ziyarat, and then when we have time after the Zohran prayers, we can recite the longer ziyarat of Bibi Ummul Baneen, which is in duas.org. So that's the website that I'm on right now, duas.org. And if you just Google ziyarat of Ummul Baneen, you will see the ziyarat that inshallah we are going to recite now. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alayki ya zawjata wali Allah. Assalamu alayki ya zawjata Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayki ya Ummul Baneen. Assalamu alayki ya Ummul Abbas ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ali ibn Abi Talib. Raziyallahu ta'ala anki wa ja'ala al-jannata manzilaki wa mawaki wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that is the short ziyarat that I just recited, and the translation is: Peace be on you, the wife of the beloved one of Allah. Peace be on you, the wife of the commander of the faithful. Peace be on you, O Ummul Baneen. Peace be on you, the mother of Abbas, son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. May Allah be pleased with you and make Jannat your home and resting place with God's mercy and blessings. So that's the ziyarat. And so today is the day of martyrdom of Baneen, the mother of many sons. And we know that when she heard the news of what happened in Karbala, it was Bashir who was giving that news, because the fourth Imam had asked Bashir to go to the households of people in Medina and tell them what happened to Imam Hussein in Karbala. It is said that Bashir was there at the grave of the Prophet telling people what happened to Imam Hussein in Karbala, and then he sees Bibi Ummul Baneen Salamullahi alaiha walking up. He did not know who this lady was, and he asked people and they told him, this is the mother of Abbas. And then as he is telling people what is happening, she has a question for him. She says, "O Bashir, tell me what happened to my Hussein." And Bashir says, because he knows who she is, he says, "Oh Bibi, your son Usman has been martyred in Karbala." And then she says, "Oh Bashir, I asked you what happened to my Hussein." And then Bashir says, your son Abdullah has been martyred in Karbala. Then she says, "Oh Bashir, I asked you what happened to my Hussein." And then when Bashir says that Imam Hussein has been killed in Karbala, she says, what was my Abbas doing then? And Bashir cries and he says, "Oh Bibi, your Abbas, his arms were already severed from his body, and he was lying in the dust near Nahr Furat. And after that was the martyrdom of Imam Hussein." And this is when she is pleased that her Abbas fought for Imam Hussein, gave up his own life before the life of Imam Hussein was taken, before Imam Hussein was martyred. This was the love and devotion of Bibi Ummul Baneen. Inshallah, my dear viewers, we will guide our footsteps to walk on the footsteps of Bibi Ummul Baneen and devote our lives for the love of the Holy Al-Abad, devote our lives for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, every action that we do will be for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will be among the mukhlisun. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And please remember me in your prayers. One last thing, I don't know how much time we have. I think we have a little bit of time. Just want to tell you about the Amal of Bibi Ummul Baneen. She is the one that we can give the wasila of for our hajat to come true. There are so many beautiful amals. Actually, when we go to Karbala, in Arba'in, they do the dastakhan of Bibi Ummul Baneen. We always attend the dastakhan. So you can do dastakhan and feed the poor. There's also amal that I was almost going to forget. I apologize for that. That Sister Homa had sent me, and I have not these amals, and inshallah I will do them, inshallah today or tomorrow. But this is amal that you do for fulfillment of hajat. because she is Babul Hawaj. Also, there's a door of Bibi Ummul Baneen in the shrine of Hazrat Abbas. And when I sit at that door, it's called Babul Ummul Baneen. When I sit at that door, I have to tell you that I have so much peace. If you have any worries and you get to go to ziyarat, you can sit at that door of Ummul Baneen in the shrine of Hazrat Abbas, and you get so much peace just sitting at the door and pondering upon, like any challenges that you're facing, any worries that you have in your heart. You can just sit there and think about it, and it gives you so much peace and you feel so much better. And inshallah, all our hajat are going to be coming true, and we can ask for hajat. So I'm going to say I'm going to tell you about two amals that Sister Huma sent me. This is very mujarrab amal. So you do 2 rakat namaz, and then you do tasbih of durud, tasbih of Surah Ikhlas, and then recite 640 times durud. And you say, this is Hadiya for Bibi Ummul Baneen, the mother of Hazrat Abbas Alamdar. After that, you can recite Hadith Kisa, Dua Tawassul, Ziyarat Warisa, Dua of Imam Zamana, and do your dua. Inshallah, all the hajat are going to be fulfilled. Here's another one, another amal of Bibi Ummul Baneen. It is also very mujarrab amal. You tie a knot, and then you do the amal, and when your hajat comes true, you open the knot again. So you tie the knot, do the amal, and then open the knot. And the amal is very simple: 2 rakat namaz, and then with the niyyah as hadiya to Bibi Ummul Baneen. And after the tasbih of Bibi Fatimatul Zahra, you recite the following. You do 3 salawats, 1 Surah Fatiha, 12 Surah Khul, 1 Surah Khadr, and 3 salawats. So this is also a pretty, I don't think this should take too long, maybe like 10 minutes, because you tie the knot, you do your 2 rakat namaz, and then after the namaz, you do the tasbih of Bibi Fatimatul Zahra, and then recite 3 salawats, 1 Surah Fatiha, 12 times Surah Khul, 1 time Surah Khadr, and then 3 salawats, and then you ask for your hajat, and inshallah, all our hajats are going to come true. And inshallah, because of this beautiful day that we are in today, the day when we reflect upon the life of Bibi Ummul Baneen, salamullahi alaiha, may all our hajats come true. And inshallah, I'm going to do this amal that Sister Huma sent me, and all of you do the amal as well. As for everybody in the world, because there are so many oppressed people, do not forget the ones who are sick, the ones who are oppressed, the refugees, their children, anybody who has troubles in their life. Remember everybody, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will listen to the hajat if we remember everyone first before we ask for ourselves. So remember that, my dear viewers, and inshallah with that, I take your leave. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.